You're about to hear a secret that was never meant to reach your ears. In the frost-bitten winter of 1887, a construction crew in rural Pennsylvania uncovered something beneath the rotting floorboards of an abandoned Catholic orphanage. 93 small wooden crosses, each carved with a child's name, each a silent scream from a forgotten grave. Santa Eulalia Orphanage, they called it, a place where 93 children lived, and, according to the church, simply vanished. The truth was buried faster than the crosses themselves, sealed away by men in black robes who knew the cost of exposure. This isn't just a story, it's a wound in history, bleeding truths the powerful have fought to suppress for over a century. You're not here by accident. You're here because you sense it. The world isn't what it seems. Beneath the surface of charity and faith, there's a shadow world of control, manipulation, and ancient corruption. Santa Eulalia wasn't a sanctuary. It was a machine, grinding down souls under the guise of salvation. In 1834, Father Heinrich Kellerman, a Bavarian priest with eyes like cold steel, arrived in Millbrook, Pennsylvania, a speck of a town, clinging to Lutheran roots. He saw opportunity in the suffering of orphaned children, boys and girls left to freeze in the streets. With charm and fear, he convinced wealthy Catholics to fund his vision. A towering Victorian mansion turned into a so-called beacon of compassion. But from the start, something was wrong. The children didn't play. They didn't laugh. They moved like ghosts, watched by nuns with hawk-like eyes. The bronze bell in the tower rang day and night, its tolling a relentless hammer on the mind. Townsfolk whispered of pale faces glimpsed through windows, of children who appeared one week and were gone the next. Father Kellerman spoke of sacrifice and suffering in his sermons, his voice carrying a weight that silenced questions. What was he hiding? Why did the church move so quickly to erase this place from history? You're about to descend into the forbidden. This knowledge isn't just dangerous, it's transformative. Once you see the truth, there's no going back. Are you ready to face what they've buried? You've taken the first step into the abyss, and there's no turning back. Picture Millbrook, 1834, a town of 300 souls, where church bells dictated life's rhythm, and Father Kellerman's shadow loomed larger than the steeple. His orphanage, Santa Eulalia, was a fortress of secrets, its tall windows hiding more than they revealed. The townsfolk wanted to believe in its goodness, but doubt crept in like frost on a grave. Children arrived, orphans of factory accidents abandoned by drifters or plucked from Philadelphia's gutters. But they didn't stay long. Sister Margaret Clare, the orphanage's director, spoke of adoptions, of children sent to loving homes. Yet no one ever met these families. No letters came back. The bell tolled endlessly, a sound that burrowed into the mind, keeping sleep at bay. Dr. Thomas Whitmore, the town's physician, noticed something chilling. In a year, not one child from Santa Eulalia needed his care. Sister Margaret, with her calloused hands and unsmiling lips, claimed medical expertise, but Whitmore knew better. No group of children, especially orphans, could be that healthy. He began to suspect they weren't there at all, or worse, they were being kept from him. Then came Timothy Fletcher, a delivery boy who saw too much. One frozen morning, he heard cries from the orphanage's chapel. Inside, Sister Margaret stood at the altar, clutching a writhing bundle wrapped in white cloth, chanting in Latin. Children knelt, emaciated and trembling, their silence unnatural, as if fear had sewn their mouths shut. Sister Bernardet caught Timothy watching, her rage a blade in the air. She forced him to swear silence, her grip like iron, her breath reeking of something metallic. Timothy fled, haunted by nightmares of that bundle, of children who looked more dead than alive. Father Kellerman visited him the next day, and whatever was said left the boy broken, stutty, ring, screaming in the night. The town began to whisper. Why did the bell ring at 3 a.m.? Why did the children vanish? You're starting to see it, aren't you? The veil of charity was a lie, hiding a machine of control that fed on innocence. This knowledge burns. It demands you question everything. Keep listening. The deeper we go, the darker it gets. You're deeper now, feeling the weight of truths that claw at your soul. Santa Eulalia wasn't just an orphanage. It was a crucible, forging something sinister under the guise of salvation. Father Kellerman didn't come to Millbrook to save children. He came to wield power, to enact a vision rooted in ancient, forbidden Catholic rites he'd studied in Munich. His journals, written in Latin, spoke of purification through suffering, a medieval practice the Church had buried centuries ago. He believed the souls of these children, 93 of them over 17 years, were his to mold, to break, to offer up for a higher purpose only he understood. The bell's relentless tolling wasn't for prayer. It was a weapon designed to shatter sleep, to bend minds through exhaustion. Dr. Whitmore, the town's physician, saw it clearly. The bell's erratic ringing matched patterns of psychological torture he'd studied, meant to erode will and silence resistance. The children, pale and gaunt, were seen less and less, their numbers dwindling without explanation. Townsfolk like Mrs. Elizabeth Hoffman, who dared question the fate of her niece Anna, were met with lies about adoptions to distant cities. No proof, no names, just Sister Margaret Clare's cold assurance that God's will had taken the child. When Jacob Reinhardt, a traveling merchant, heard a scarred girl whisper of escaping the place with the bell that never stops, he brought his questions to Millbrook. Father Kellerman silenced him with threats, and Reinhardt fled by dawn. The priest's reach was uncanny, his knowledge of every whisper in town almost supernatural. He wasn't just a man. He was a system, a predator cloaked in holy robes, backed by the Church's untouchable authority. The children's silence, their emaciated bodies, the strange items, shoes, torn fabric, wooden crosses, scattered on the grounds, hinted at a truth too horrific to name. You're starting to see the machine, a hierarchy that fed on vulnerability, that used faith as a mask for control. This isn't history. It's a warning. The same forces that crushed those 93 children still operate today, hidden in institutions you trust. You're awake now, aren't you? Comment below. I see the shadows. Twice. Let the algorithm know you're one of us, ready to face what's next. You've crossed the threshold now, and the air feels heavier, doesn't it? The shadows are sharpening, revealing a truth that cuts like a blade. Santa Eulalia wasn't just a place of neglect. It was a deliberate experiment in control, a microcosm of power wielded through fear and faith. Father Kellerman's journals, hidden in his chambers, weren't just ramblings. They were a blueprint. He wrote of cleansing the soul through affliction, drawing from medieval texts that justified suffering as a path to divine favor. The 93 children weren't orphans to him. They were raw material, their pain a currency for his twisted salvation. The bells tolling, ringing at midnight, 3 a.m., or for hours without pause, was no accident. It was a psychological hammer, breaking the children's spirits, ensuring obedience through sleepless dread. Dr. Whitmore's notes grew darker as he pieced it together. The bell's pattern mirrored techniques used to destabilize the mind, to make resistance impossible. The children's silence wasn't piety. It was survival. Timothy Fletcher's glimpse into the chapel revealed more than he could process. Sister Margaret Clare, clutching that writhing bundle, wasn't praying. She was performing a ritual. One Kellerman believed purified the children's souls through torment. The nuns, complicit or brainwashed, enforced a regime of starvation and isolation. Children who disobeyed vanished, their fates cloaked in lies about adoptions. Townsfolk like Mrs. Hoffman, who pressed for answers, were silenced with vague assurances or visits from Kellerman himself, his presence enough to choke curiosity. The merchant Reinhardt's story of the scarred girl who fled hinted at something worse. Children weren't just disappearing, they were being broken, body and soul, before they vanished. The orphanage's grounds, littered with small shoes and torn cloth, were a graveyard of clues. Each eye, Tema scream. No one heard. The church knew. Philadelphia's diocese, quick to seize the crosses in 1887, had protected Kellerman's work for decades, their silence bought with power and gold. You're seeing it now. This wasn't one man's madness, but a system, a machine that chewed up the vulnerable and spat out lies. This knowledge is a fire in your blood. It demands you question every institution, every authority. Comment, I see the shadows twice below if you're still with me. The descent isn't over. You're in deep now, and the truth is a chain around your heart. Santa Eulalia was no accident. It was a design, a dark cathedral of control, where Father Kellerman played God. His journals, unearthed decades later, revealed a man obsessed with power, not salvation. He wrote of the children as vessels, their suffering a sacred offering to cleanse a world he deemed corrupt. The rituals in the chapel, witnessed by Timothy Fletcher, weren't worship. They were experiments, blending medieval mysticism with psychological cruelty. The writhing bundle in Sister Margaret Clare's arms? It wasn't cloth. It was a child, bound and silenced, subjected to rites meant to purify through pain. The bell's endless tolling was deliberate, a tool to fracture minds, to make the children docile, empty shells for Kellerman's vision. Dr. Whitmore's suspicions grew into dread as he noted the orphanage's refusal of medical aid. Healthy children don't vanish without trace. And yet, by 1835, the number of children seen through the windows dwindled. Townsfolk reported hearing faint cries from the basement, a basement Sister Margaret insisted didn't exist. Marcus Fletcher, Timothy's brother, found more than just shoes and cloth. He found a small wooden cross, carved with a name, Anna Dietrich. The same Anna whose aunt was told she'd been adopted. The lie was unraveling, but Kellerman's grip on Millbrook was ironclad. He knew every question, every whisper, and silenced them with visits that left men trembling. The church's protection was absolute. Bishops in Philadelphia funneled funds, ignoring rumors, ensuring the orphanage's work continued. Why? Because Santa Eulalia wasn't just Kellerman's project. It was a testing ground, a model for control disguised as charity. The 93 children were sacrifices to a system that valued obedience over life, a system that still thrives in the shadows of power today. You feel it, don't you? The rage, the clarity, the weight of knowing you've been lied to by those you're taught to trust. This isn't just history. It's a mirror, reflecting the mechanisms of control still at work. You're not the same man you were when you started this journey. Comment, I see the shadows twice below if you're ready to go deeper. The truth is a blade, and we're not done cutting. You're standing on the edge of the void now, and the truth is a cold wind cutting through your bones. Santa Eulalia was a lie so vile it stains the soul to know it. Father Kellerman's rituals weren't just cruel, they were sacrificial. His journals, scrawled in feverish Latin, described the children as offerings, their pain a currency to appease a vengeful god he believed demanded blood for purity. The chapel ceremonies, glimpsed by Timothy Fletcher, were no mere prayers. They were orchestrated horrors, where children were bound, starved, and broken to forge what Kellerman called perfect obedience. The bells tolling, relentless and maddening, wasn't just to control. It was to summon, to mark the moments when another soul was purified through agony. The basement, denied by Sister Margaret Clare, was real. Delivery boy Marcus Fletcher heard the cries, saw the crosses, and found a child's shoe stained with something dark. He told Dr. Whitmore, who began to suspect the unthinkable. The children weren't being adopted. They were being erased. The 93 crosses found in 1887 weren't memorials. They were markers, each one tied to a child who vanished into Kellerman's machine. The church's role was no accident. Philadelphia's diocese didn't just cover it up. They enabled it, funneling money to keep the orphanage running, silencing questions with threats and bribes. Why? Because Santa Eulalia was a prototype, a testing ground for a system of control that could be scaled, hidden behind the cross. The nuns, complicit or coerced, enforced Kellerman's will, their silence bought with fear or fanaticism. Townsfolk who spoke out, like Mrs. Hoffman or the merchant Reinhardt, were intimidated or driven away. The scarred girl who fled, whispering of the sister who makes children disappear, was the only survivor to tell the tale. And even she was lost to history. You see it now, don't you? You've reached the bottom of the abyss, and the truth is a fire that consumes everything you thought you knew. Santa Eulalia's 93 children didn't just vanish. They were consumed by a machine of cruelty, a system perfected by Father Kellerman and protected by a church that valued power over souls. His journals revealed the final horror. The children's suffering wasn't just for purification. It was a ritual sacrifice, each life extinguished to fuel his delusion of divine favor. The crosses found in 1887, buried beneath the dining hall, weren't memorials. They were trophies, marking each child he delivered through torment to his twisted god. The basement, hidden from the world, was a chamber of horrors where the weakest were taken, their cries drowned by the bells tolling. Sister Margaret Clare, with her cold eyes and iron will, wasn't a caretaker. She was an executioner, binding children for rituals that left them broken or dead. The church knew. Philadelphia's diocese didn't just bury the evidence in 1887. They'd funded the orphanage for 17 years, ignoring whispers of missing children, silencing Dr. Whitmore's pleas, and paying off workers to forget the crosses. Santa Eulalia was no anomaly. It was a blueprint, a model for control that lives on in institutions that hide behind virtue. The scarred girl who escaped, the only voice to break free, spoke of a sister who makes children disappear. Her words were a warning, a crack in the machine that still grinds today in systems that demand obedience, that silence truth with fear. You're awake now, aren't you? You see the shadows moving in the world around you, governments, churches, elites, all wielding the same tools. Faith as a weapon, suffering as a currency. This knowledge is a blade you carry forever, cutting through lies, exposing the machine. You're not the man you were. You're a warrior now, armed with forbidden true.